Dodgers have won it all. High fly ball into right field. She is gone. He struck him out. 2 balls and a strike to count on Taylor. Reyes fires, swinging a drive, deep left field. This is way back. Welcome on, Chris Taylor.
What's going on, everyone? Welcome into DodgerHeads presented by DodgerBlue.com. My name is Scott Geirman. I'm here for the first time one-on-one with Daniel Starkand. What's up, buddy? How we doing, man?
I'm doing okay now. Like, we still got smiles on our faces. The nerves haven't quite hit yet. But like you said, I think this is the first time we've done, just us two on a show. So looking forward to it. And yeah, nerves haven't hit yet. So just excitement right now.
Welcome in, everybody. This is an exciting day. I'm sure everybody got great sleep. Not a chance. So if you're excited, you've waited the 162. Dodgers get the number 1 seed here. We've outlasted this bye week, this waiting period. For you, Daniel, what are some things you're looking out for right now, for the Dodgers? Before we get into the talk of the roster, what are you looking for immediately? What we're seeing with the Guardians and them being able to hit right away. What are you looking for the Dodgers to do after what we've seen in recent years?
I honestly think you just hit the nail on the head right there, and I just tweeted it a little while ago. Like, the long layoff and facing a red hot team definitely doesn't seem to be affecting the Guardians. So I don't think that's an acceptable excuse for the Dodgers. I know they've struggled with that in the past, but I feel like this is the year. Like, you got to come out and bring it right away. And I will say it does start. It starts with this guy right here. It's that leadoff hole. Going to be playing his first, playoff game tonight. The nerves will be hitting us, but he said yesterday they ain't hitting him. So, yeah, hopefully a big night from him.
And I agree with you. I said with Blake, we were on the other night, and the biggest thing for me was that it's all different. With Shohei Ohtani at the top of it, we've seen how he is. You see his demeanor. He's saying every single thing you want to hear from the kind of the face of this franchise, right? Just going out in front saying he's waited. This is childhood dreams for him. So we're going to see him right at the top there. He's going to be leaving it all out. But big elephant in the room. News just broke. Dodgers announced their official 26-man roster. And they were debating between going with 12 or 13 pitchers, and they opted to go with the extra arm over an additional bat. And we're seeing Michael Grove. The Dodgers went Michael Grove with Joe Kelly left off the roster. How big of a thing is it for you to see Joe Kelly off this postseason roster?
I'm not gonna lie. I was definitely a little surprised. Like, it's not like Joe Kelly has performed like by any means up to his standards, but he's still a guy that you expect to be on the roster. And Dave has always said he has trust in his guys, and all that yada yada yada. But I guess they finally are getting serious here. But I will say, like, Michael Grove making it's not like you have much more confidence in him. So I guess that's why I was a little surprised. Like, he can provide you with some length, like, in theory, but he's typically struggled when going out for a second or third inning. So I don't know, in practice how that's going to play out. So I was a little surprised by the Kelly move, but to me, I was just happy that our guy Edgardo Enriquez made the roster. Yes. Like, that to me, like, if they would have included Kelly and Michael Grove and left Enriquez off the roster, I would have been, legitimately upset at that. So I do think they made the right decision there. But what do you think about the whole Kelly, Grove thing?
Yeah, so with the Padres made a similar move like this. With the Joe Musgrove news aside, they added Martin Perez over there. That kind of fills in for one, same caliber, but that slots in as a fourth guy. But they went with right-hander Alec Jacob, and Alec Jacob has been kind of their long man. He's been their multi-inning guy. And for Michael Grove, that's going to be what they're looking at it for him. I would have preferred it to be Ben Kasparius just because of upside from what we've seen. His stuff is just so much better. Maybe they wanted the experience. Not sure. I totally would have gone with Ben Kasparius there. But if Michael Grove is used, let's just say it's either the starting pitcher had to get pulled early. They're up in the game. They just need to bridge a gap there. I don't believe he's going to be pitching significant innings. I think Ben Kasparius, on the other hand, though, could have given you multi-inning stuff while giving you wipeout upside. So they're opting to go with Michael Grove there. But I think for the usage, Daniel, I don't think it'll be significant stuff. So although I would have loved to see Kasparius over Michael Grove, if Michael Grove's pitching, they're either they're leading the game by a lot, or they need to fill some innings with, after the starter leaves early.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And especially when you're talking about, a 5-game series where you got multiple, off days baked in, like you should have, in theory, you should basically have all your high leverage relievers ready to go, in every single game. So it's not like you're going to be seeing Michael Grove in a 1-run game in the 7th inning or something. Like you said, he's probably going to be in there if there's, a blowout either way, or if you can't get any length out of your starter, which obviously is a legitimate concern with this Dodgers team. So, but I'm with you. Like, I think Kasparius, would have been a better option, both like as a length guy, and also even if you just needed like in a pinch in a high leverage situation, I think we would feel more comfortable with him just because the stuff does play up. But yeah, like you said, like in a 5-game series, you probably aren't going to need all 26 guys on your roster for that. Like maybe deeper into the playoff run, it becomes more important. So, we are nitpicking here a little bit, so hopefully it doesn't come down to a big situation with Michael Grove on the mound. But yeah, overall, I mean, the roster's stacked and they got, all their main guys, like, the starting 9 is the starting 9. So they didn't feel the need to carry an extra position player, which I agree with. And then on the pitching side, they got 5 or 6 guys you really trust in that bullpen, which is great.
Yeah, absolutely. And as we look at the position player group, no big surprises there. We know who we're getting. Outfielders wise, Teoscar, Andy Pages, and, kind of some multi-positioner players, Mookie Betts, Tommy Edman, Kike Hernandez, Chris Taylor there. So a lot of versatility with Martin Perez now. That opens up. So let's say he goes game 4. That opens up the Dodgers to utilize that left-handed, a lot of right-handers in that lineup where they've done really well against lefties. Surprisingly, this year it's been a very good flip. It's something where it gives it a plus to Kike Hernandez, a plus to Tommy Edman, Chris Taylor. We're going to see Gavin Lux get spelled for a game. That's if we get to that point, if Martin Perez doesn't appear earlier. But I think that's a plus for the Dodgers in itself. But for the usual suspects, guys we've seen in the roster, I think we know, aside from, the omission of Kevin Kiermaier, how were you surprised of that there?
I wouldn't say surprised just because it feels like it had been kind of trending in that direction for the last couple of weeks. And honestly, it's more of a credit to Andy Pages, I would say, than like, saying Kiermaier hasn't done anything. Cause I do think, Kiermaier has shown like what his role could be. Like, obviously he's a great defender, could run the bases and such. But I do think Andy Pages really went out and won that job over the last few weeks, since he got called back up.
Absolutely.
You just mentioned it with the Padres having another lefty potentially in the rotation with Martin Perez. They got some, devastating lefties in that bullpen, talking about Tanner Scott in particular. So there might be, a time where you need a big at bat out of Andy Pages, either, coming off the bench or in the starting lineup against the lefty. And he's shown over the last few weeks that he's up for that challenge. So good for him. Like he obviously, got optioned towards the end of August and, things weren't exactly going well for him, but, he, instead of, pouting and being salty about it, he went down to AAA, did his thing, got called back up and has been great since. So credit to him.
Absolutely. And for what we've seen from Andy Pages, he looks so much more comfortable at the dish. And I love what you said about it's less about Kiermaier not producing. We just haven't seen him. You start to see the trend. It wasn't that he wasn't performing when he was at the dish. When he's on defense, you know what you're getting. But it was that you just didn't see him. I forgot he was on the team for a bit. But Andy Pages, he's looked good against both sides. Against righties, the average isn't there, but he's had a 150 WRC plus since the beginning of August. Super small sample, but it's about comfortability being up there. And if they do bring him in, I think they'd be okay leaving him in. And you're seeing that without Kevin Kiermaier on the roster, having that sub, I think they're totally okay that if he's facing a righty, they feel just as comfortable as I do. I don't know if you do, if you probably feel the same way. It's just about him getting those reps. And just like we've seen with a lot of players, you find that you have that, that hype at the beginning, you have that dip. How do you respond from that dip? And would it be fair to say that Andy Pages has answered the bell?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that obviously makes us feel more comfortable about his future in the organization, but more specifically, looking at this playoff run, there actually is like a legit role for him. Like he might not be in the starting lineup, but he's going to be that righty, bat off the bench against a lefty. Maybe he finds himself in a platoon type role with, like, let's say a Gavin Lux. I know Kike will be in the mix as well, but you could easily, if a lefty's on the mound, you could easily bring Mookie into second and start Pages in right field. Like, I know we're not really comfortable with him in center, but, in a corner outfield situation against lefty pitching, I think that's, somewhere he could really thrive during this run. So, I mean, good for him. And I think it was the right choice. Like, I know, Kiermaier, the defense is great. But with the starting lineup, pretty much set and him, being a lefty bat, like you said, we haven't seen him in a few weeks, and that probably would have been more of the same in the playoffs. So I do think it makes sense to carry a guy like Pages, who you could go to in a pinch hit situation and feel comfortable.
Yeah, and it's just, I love what they've done. I love how they put some confidence in him. He looks great at the plate. He had a big homer recently, absolute tank jobs, against the Padres. So I think the familiarity factor works there. I see people in chat again, guys. We appreciate you, Daniel and I, for sure. Everybody at DodgerHeads, Dodger Blue. This is a big day. We've waited, 162 regular season for this. We wait all year for it. So again, chat, thanks for joining us in. If you've got any questions, we'll save those for a bit. I don't know how much longer we'll keep it up for questions, but if you've got any pressing ones, stuff that sparks a conversation, we'll stay up for it. Shout out to the over 900 in here across all social media, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. So thanks a bunch. Any raging comments, and you guys toss those in super chats. I know there might be some, but I think that what's great is that there are the moves that, spark conversation or at the very back end stuff that if it's happening, it's not going to be a very big deal. Kevin Kiermaier being left off the roster. If he was there, it would be more if there was an injury that forced Freddie Freeman off the roster, Miguel Rojas off the roster. And the fact that Rojas has been such a key piece to the Dodgers offense with runners in scoring position, him being on there and being good enough to play. And I know Blake told us the other night that by all accounts, Rojas is looking good, feeling good. He's had a lot of confidence and says he's going to be completely great. What does Miguel Rojas bring? And how important is he going to be playing? This is the spot, Dan. Remember we were saying, can we just get Rojas to the finish line? How much can we get out of him? Now it's here. What are you expecting? Yeah,
well, first of all, I do think, having a couple off days baked in will definitely benefit him. And he said as much. Like, he could play like 2 days and then get an off day, but if he has to play a week straight, I think that's kind of when it becomes an issue. But I do think like the omission of Kiermaier on the roster like shows that they have a confidence in Rojas that he's going to be able to stay healthy and play, because if Rojas isn't in the picture, then Tommy Edman becomes your starting shortstop, and then you need someone in center field. So if they weren't confident that Rojas would be good to go, then I do think they probably would have included Kiermaier on the roster just to have another option in center field. So, I mean, I think, Miggy Rowe, he's a gamer. He's a guy who you want in there, obviously for the defense in particular. Like, that's going to be big in the playoffs. The Padres, specifically, they don't strike out a ton. Like, they put the ball in play a lot of ground balls. So you definitely want Miggy at short. And then at the bottom of the lineup, like he's shown all season that he could come up in big spots and come up with big hits. So, I definitely feel confident with Miggy Rowe. We'll see, I guess, as the postseason goes along, if he's able to, maintain, at least an 80% level of health so that he's good to go. But yeah, I'd say like more concerned about Freddie Freeman, honestly, just because from what we heard yesterday that
weeks.
He said it would be like a 4 to 6 week injury if this was the regular season. And obviously we know how tough Freddie is, but coming back from that in a week is not going to be easy.
I was telling Blake, I was like, I don't know about you, Blake. I hurt my back. It takes months. If I hurt if I jumped up and tried to catch I was playing catch with my daughter and I fell down on my ankle and I rolled that thing and I was feeling it for weeks. Yeah. So I know Freddie, how it was looking like that. He's going to do whatever it takes to show that it's not affecting him, but it definitely will. I was saying the biggest thing, he'll do whatever it takes to get out there. And I was listening to AM 570 yesterday and hearing them talk about the same stuff I said with Blake. It's going to affect him. We're going to have to see how he is going, if he leg out a double, going first to third on a base hit, stuff like that. First to home, is that even going to be a possibility? I know the bat to ball will be there. I know his mind will be even, I would say even more focused. When you're wounded a little bit, your focus sharpens up, right? That's just how it goes. Competitive nature kicks in. I think a lot of people forget about that. So I'm not saying Freddie's going to take an extra step here because he lost a step with this ankle, but I'm saying at the plate, he might be a little bit more inclined to get some bat to ball here. And I think we'll see some stuff out of Freddie that we know and we've come to expect of him. I don't have a worry about Freddie at the plate because he's a gamer. So I'm good on that front. I think those two guys, Miguel Rojas, Freddie Freeman, being there, a lot of confidence in their injury, their stuff that they've got going on here. But I really want to chat with you about Edgardo Enriquez. We kind of just glossed over it. We're talking about, a 22-year-old kid who had 3 outings during the regular season here. Has almost a K per 9 of almost 14. I'm sure the walks are always going to be an issue with him when your stuff's trying to refine it. With Edgardo, Has there been a name like him that you've seen come up late season, get a little cup of coffee, and he's on the roster?
I mean, the Phillies did it last year with Orion Kerkering. Obviously, K-Rod is like the big example of that, however many decades ago that was. But, I personally love, their decision to do that. Like, I think stuff plays up in October. I think velocity plays up in October. Like, especially as you get, in the later rounds when it starts getting a little colder, like maybe you're playing a game 5 in Philadelphia and it's like 45 degrees outside. Like no one wants to hit a guy throwing 101, 102, when it's cold outside. Like that hurts your hands a lot. So I like having them, in there. Like you said, like the walks are definitely a concern, but I also think I don't think they're just going to necessarily throw him into the fire. Like, I think they'll try to give him, a soft landing spot, at least for his first outing, just to kind of get his feet wet a little bit. And it does help that you have, 4 or 5 other arms that you trust in that bullpen. But, the upside is there with him. Like, there's definitely a chance that he just goes out there and dominates. And we look back, at the end of this postseason run saying, like, hey, we got our future closer with, with Enriquez right here. So, I'm excited. Like I always, I always like, look forward, but I'm just excited to see a guy with that kind of stuff in October. Like it feels like the Dodgers have been going in that direction, and with good reason. Like that, those are the guys we typically see, succeed in these big October games. So yeah, happy for him, and excited for sure.
I think this is great. I think Hallelujah. It's great to see you, man. It's great to have you in. Some days we go back and forth on some things, but this one is exactly it. I think with Edgardo, he just needs to be like Kopech, throw some in the zone and let them chase his bad pitches. And even with, Edgardo, he's flashed some secondary stuff. He's not all fastball cutter. And I think his slider at times can be charted as a cutter just because he throws it so hard. But I think this is so much like that. I think that his stuff is so filthy. And I love what you said. I don't think they've got other arms. They've got Evan Phillips. They've got Blake Trinan, who are going to be getting the bulk of those high leverage spots. But I think that early in games, like, a starter comes out, Edgardo comes in, we're talking about a kid throwing 101, 102. And I don't think it's such a bad thing when you go straight from, a starting pitcher here, and then you immediately bump up 7, 8 miles an hour on the averages here. And it just gives you a nice change of pace, change in speed, mix in speeds. And I love the fact that they're getting back to this high velocity stuff because it's not so many years removed where we were talking about what's the average, fastball for this Dodgers bullpen. And now we're back to a point where I feel like they've all got their stuff locked in. This philosophy that Mark Pryor and the rest of the pitching staff has had all year, and it's worked for them. A lot of older arms, they've gotten themselves to this point where they're a top 5 bullpen. And the conversation has been, how can they manage all these older arms, these older guys that have a ton of miles on themselves? But they've been able to handle it. Now you've got a 22-year-old who's coming into his own. He's the rise for Edgardo, playing, I believe, at five different levels this year. Might be 6, but if it's 5 different levels, it's a beautiful thing. I'm happy for him as a prospect, as a person, and now a big leaguer. I think all the adjectives, all the plus things we could say about him can be said, but I'm going to keep an eye on him. So hallelujah. I appreciate that comment there because it just encompasses, he came right up, wasn't afraid. Anything else to say about the bullpen? Are you confident? I know we're confident with this bullpen.
Yeah, I mean, just one more quick thing on Enriquez, because I just looked up the box score because I remember that he did face the Padres and it might have been his major league debut. And really good outing. You know, he struck out Solano. Then he gave up a hit to Higashioka, but then he got a rise to pop out and struck out Tatis. So, and that was in a big series too. So he pretty much showed there that like the moment's not going to be too big for him. You like the swing and miss stuff. So yeah, overall, I'm you know, feeling pretty confident in the bullpen. Like, you're never going to feel overly confident just because, like, look at what happened with the Brewers the other night. Like, Devin Williams is arguably the best reliever in baseball, and he gave up the bomb to Pete Alonso. Like, it could happen to anyone, but I do think the bullpen's in a good spot. You know, you kind of just went through the names there. Like, there is a lot of guys you trust. So yeah, I mean, you know, you're not going to get a ton of length out of your starters, so it is going to be a big, you know, bullpen series, and I do feel like the bullpen's in a good spot right now.
I totally agree, man. And I think chat, you guys will agree for all the times, that people want to, you know, complain about the bullpen or say some stuff about the bullpen. I think the collection of names that they've got, Anthony Banda, Ryan Brazier's here, Michael Grove to provide some length with whatever it is. It's short spurts. All we say is they keep it there. If they keep it to an inning in a third, 2/3, and stay right there, and you know the spot to get them out, I think they'll have enough. And then you go into Edgardo Enriquez, Daniel Hudson. Hopefully he locks it in. Landon Knack, Kopech. You know, we can go down the list. Like, guys, they've got a stable of 13 arms out there, including the starting pitchers, that I think – chat, the root of it is this. 1,500, listen up. You're all on the same page. If you look at last year, 2023, coming into 2024, I think you feel worlds better where your starting rotation is at. And I think you have a ton of confidence that if you hand it over to the bullpen a little bit early, they've done it enough this year. Think about how many short starts that the Dodgers starting pitching has had this year. And the bullpen came in and ran a clean slate. Maybe you allowed 1 earned run, 2 earned runs. Keep them in the ball game. Daniel, I think we feel the same way with how this has gone, because the Padres against the Braves, they did a bulk of their damage early in the games. And I know they just added one. Higashioka added a late homer at the very end of the second game. You know, what are you thinking? What are you thinking and seeing? Like, is this going to be the same script for the Dodgers? You think that if that's the case, the bullpen's got the moxie to, you know, really keep them in there?
I think what you just pointed out is going to be really important. I think for both teams, honestly, like getting out to early leads is going to be key in this series. Like both bullpens are really good. Like, these are two of the best bullpens in the league right here, and it's going to be tough to score runs and mount a comeback late. And when you look at, you know, honestly, both starting rotations are not in the best spot right now. Like, both have dealt with injuries. So I do think the key to this series for both teams is going to be to jump out to an early lead. And we've seen with the Dodgers, like, I hate to rehash what happened last year, but those games were basically over, like, before the Dodgers even stepped to the plate. Like, it's you can't, you know, be giving up, you know, crooked numbers in the first or second inning and expect to come back, especially when you're talking about a Padres team that has a great bullpen. So
absolutely.
First of all, like, it starts with Yamamoto. We haven't mentioned him at all. He's going to be on the mound to start the game tonight. And I do think putting up a 0 in that first inning would be absolutely massive. Like, let's get Big Show to the plate with a 0-0 game. And let's see
the other day, bro.
Yeah, like, let's see if we could jump out to the early lead and put the Padres on their heels for a change.
To a T. That's exactly what I said. I was just like, I think that for the psyche, you know, looking at it as a fan, I think even from our perspective, right? Like, taking off, you know, the journalism lens for a second, just looking at, just like believing as a fan, you step in, you look up, you see a 0 in the first. I think that even with Flaherty, Yamamoto is going to be the same thing. You know, first inning ERA this year, even for Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease has a 6. I don't know if it's the same stuff. Let me pull this up. But I know that Yamamoto's ERA in the first inning this year is a 6. 18 innings, so it's he's allowing almost a 300 batting average in the first. So, and that's a lot of starting for a lot of starting pitchers. It's not just him. It's tough to get it rolling in the first, but the Padres are going to be aggressive. I think that the offense, just like you said, looking up, seeing a 0, that this is a fresh game. Let's take a breath. For Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman, everybody who was there last year, I think from that perspective, I don't know how much they think about it. I think athletes turn the page and they don't really think too much about that. But I think that the psyche of, we've got a ball game. You know, the postseason's hit 0-0. Guardians do the same thing. Put up a 0, go out, score a bunch of runs. I think that Yamamoto comes out, puts up a 0. Then we're cooking. Then we can chat.
Yeah, no, for sure. And you know, we you just mentioned Yamamoto. Like, obviously he had a lot of that, you know, first inning ERA goes back to that start in Korea when against this Padres team when he really struggled in the first inning. So, like, that's that's something you definitely want to avoid this time around. And I do think, you bring up the mental aspect of it, and I think that's, the key really. Like the Dodgers have all the physical talent in the world, but they got to stay in it mentally. And honestly, like it's tough to do that when you're facing a big early deficit. Like we talk about wanting the Dodgers to show that fire and show emotion, and when you're down 5-0, like there's no fire, to show. Like I definitely think that has a lot to do with it. So if they are able to, yeah, exactly. If they are able to get off to a good start, I do think that could kind of propel them and kind of get over those mental hurdles that we've seen the last couple of years. Like baseball, hitting specifically in baseball is really contagious. Like if you see a couple guys go up there and get hits and kind of settle the team in, then I do think we'll see them kind of relax and be able to, go on a nice little run where they could kind of put a rally together. So I do think, tonight will be key. The first couple innings, especially. I'll be looking out for that for sure.
Love it. All right. So we're going to stick right there. I think, this was the 26-man chat. This was the official Dodgers announced the official roster. You can check out the link in there. We'll have that. I think we'll have it. I'll ask Blake to pin that after this gets posted up there. But if you want to check it out, check out DodgerBlue.com. It should be one of the first stories right up there. Dodgers announced the official their 26-man for the postseason roster here. We're gonna bring in Matt. Oh my goodness, we got a special here. He's just settled in at the stadium. We were just gonna roll this out, but he joined in. Matt, we good to bring you on? Give me a thumbs up, and I'll bring you up. All righty, let's do it, guys. Chat. Matt Moreno graces us with his presence. How we doing? How's the stadium?
It's quiet right now. I'm a little early. It doesn't technically open until 12 for like media and stuff like that. But I got my credential yesterday at the workout, so I was able to come in. I didn't realize you guys were done. I didn't mean to keep extending.
No.
So I apologize for that.
You're a lunch pail guy. First in, last out. Brown paper bag.
Yeah.
Hi, answer some questions here as well, but we could get your thoughts on the roster, Matt. Like we talked through it, but was there anything that you were overly surprised by? I know you were calling Michael Grove for the last couple of weeks here, so you could take your little victory lap.
I know it was
my hair out.
I mean, I didn't necessarily think they would do that. Like I thought, with Knack, and I thought Kelly would be the guy that if they need multiple innings, he could go 1 1/3, maybe 5 outs type thing. So I'm surprised that Kelly isn't on it more so than Grove making the team. Other than that, I mean, nothing else. I mean, I obviously Clayton Kershaw we knew wasn't going to be part of it. What I am curious to see now is how Grove being on the roster, if it changes anything with Landon Knack. Like, is he suddenly an option? Like, if the Dodgers don't get length for whatever reason early on in the series, do they go like straight bullpen game, and that's one of the reasons Grove is on? Or is he, like, if Yamamoto or Flaherty for whatever reason can't go 5-6 innings, is Grove then an option in that scenario? So I mean, I think the Dodgers definitely gave themselves some flexibility.
Yeah, I think that's a great point. That's an absolutely great point. It just opens up the fact that I think the Dodgers feel comfortable. Let me ask this. Game 4, if you say the Dodgers go with a bullpen game, do you feel okay with that? Like, for what they've done, like the sample that they've given us in bulk stuff this year, if you're able to get, 3-4, say from Landon Knack, and just turn it over, I think they've done enough. It just matters of how much they're exhausted in the prior games.
Yeah, that would be my biggest concern, is what was the usage in the first 3 games? And part of me wonders, like, if the bullpen is in good shape after the first 2, do they go bullpen game in game 3 and push Walker Buehler back to a game 4? Like, maybe change it that way, even though not that he's guaranteed to give you, 6 or 7 innings by any means, but he is trending in the right direction.
Sure.
So, yeah, I mean, I think that's one thing, we've discussed sort of kind of the Padres bullpen, I think, has gotten a lot of the headlines. The Dodgers, I think, have good depth in their bullpen, and I think that they're a little bit better at sort of mixing and matching with their opponent, better than maybe the Padres might be.
Yeah, I've watched Schilt a number of times, just like you said. Like I know you've tuned in, you've kept tabs. I've watched a lot of Padres baseball in the last couple of months here. Infectious energy there. When Schilt goes for it, you can see his script there. He's got his guys that he's ready to go with, and it feels like he's pitching them all the time. And I think for a lot of the familiarity stuff, it matters. We've seen that a ton. We've seen the Dodgers offense and their scouting. When you throw a lot of these guys in succession, number of games in a row here, things happen. breaks happen. Daniel, what do you say to, some of these teams and the Padres tonight? What are you looking out for in terms of Mike, Schilt going after these same matchups over and over, and the Dodgers picking up on that? Because we've seen it with the Dodgers in a number of postseasons.
Yeah, I do think there is a bit of an aspect of like game one kind of, being a feel out game. Like I know that's common in the NBA playoffs, but I do think there is a little bit in baseball too. And I know, these teams have faced each other a lot. So the Dodgers have seen a lot of these pitchers. So that usually benefits the hitter. But I also do think, like, let's say, they bring in Tanner Scott to face, Shohei and Freddie. The fact that they're seeing him now, and then when they see him in game 2, game 3 down the line, like each time they see him again, I think it will benefit the hitters. And that is also why I might be just a little cautious about a bullpen game for the Dodgers, just because we're talking about game 4, like, the Padres might have seen a lot of those guys by then.
Yeah.
But also like Landon Knack, I don't know how much you trust him, especially if you're looking at an elimination game in game 4, it might be, the better option might just be to roll out the pen and hope they could get you to a game 5 there. So I do think like in an NLDS that makes a little more sense, just because you do have the 2 off days baked in. So it's not like guys are going to be, overused necessarily this early in the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll see how the series goes, how the first couple games goes. Like ideally the Dodgers just win the first 2, and who knows, maybe even win game 3, and we don't have to, have any of these conversations.
I don't have to deal with it.
But we all know that's not usually how it goes. So I thought Matt made a good point of just having, different options, like, depending on how things go. If you want to run a bullpen game, you can. If you want to use, let's say tonight's a lopsided game and you want to use like Knack for 2-3 innings just to save the bullpen, like that's an option as well. So I do like that.
All right, Roy, relax. Lay off of Matt. Like, Chenny, like Matt, I watched the tape. Matt made a very good point with just trying to bring some balance, because a lot of the times people will say, DodgerHeads or any Dodger channel, you're overwhelming Dodgers tidal wave. You just, then they say, oh, you're just the talking heads for it. And it's all blue all the time. But you have to bring some balance. You have to bring some clear eyes every now and then. You have to give the control. You have to give the other side. You have to play devil's advocate, because it's important. That's what Blake and I do on almost all of our shows. He keeps it honest with me. But Matt, real quick, while I've got you, looking at this.
Sorry, Scotty, real quick, before we move on, I just want to point out that going back to 2021, Matt picked the Giants to beat the Dodgers. So he fell on the sword there, and it helped the Dodgers win. So if that's what he's doing here, exactly. I'm totally fine with that.
Exactly. That's been my point. It's not so much that I'm picking them. It's just I'm saying it for the sake of bringing balance to our show.
There you go.
Perfect. All right. Yep. DM says appreciate the channel for its objective and unbiased take and lack of sound effects. Yeah, I don't have any DJ air horns or stuff like that. Just not my style, man. I ramble enough as it is. I don't need any sound fillers in there. But Matt, while I've got you, buddy, appreciate you, man. Thanks for getting to the stadium early. About the 26-man roster, D Stark and I really were looking at it, that emphasizing there aren't the surprises are at the very back end. And this is a conversation with the roster in the regular season, where it went less from the guys in the starting lineup of being a conversation, more towards the bench. And now looking ahead, the same type of thing towards the 26-man. These moves that are making us have, driving this conversation feel at the very back end there. Are there any big surprises for you that are going to actually have drastic impacts, or stuff that it's going to be like a slippery slope type of thing? I don't see those right now.
Yeah, not too much. I mean, I think, like I said, the biggest thing that jumps out to me is just what's going to happen now with the pitching. And I know, like I mentioned it on one of our shows with somebody a couple weeks ago, like I know that Landon Knack was named to the postseason rotation, but I threw it out at the time. Like, are we going to see him get it? And I said Pepio, basically, because Pepio was supposed to start in the NLDS last year. But if the Dodgers had not been swept by the Diamondbacks, Kershaw was starting game 4. Like it wasn't out there publicly, but I had talked to enough people at the time that Pepio was not going to make that start. And so I wonder, like, are we trending toward a similar decision and situation now, where not only is he not necessarily following an opener maybe in game 3 or 4, but is he just like a bullpen guy? And they're not going to necessarily disclose something like that, because obviously that's strategy and things like that. So that's my biggest thing. Position player, it's what we expected. No real surprises there. I think if obviously Freddie Freeman, his ankle was a serious issue. I mean, he was going to be on the roster no matter what, but if there were, I think, significant concerns about his availability, then maybe the Dodgers would have carried an extra position player. So I think the fact that they did it bodes well. Same thing for Miguel Rojas, who's been honestly moving well during the workouts when we saw him this week. So yeah, I mean, a lot of that was pretty much it. Andy Pages, over the last week of the regular season, like that kind of came into clarity, I guess, if you will, with him. And then Kiermaier fracturing his finger in Colorado, I think really solidified it, although Pages was probably going to make it ahead of him anyway.
I think offensively, Andy Pages has shown, we spoke about his stuff. I highlighted just a tiny bit of sliver from August, and he's been solid there, run producing wise. But against lefties, he's proved that it's just such a comfortability thing. Like Kike Hernandez, what's funny with him is he had reverse splits, and then Kike just flips it on. It's kind of settled him into that role. They're like, okay, you're going to face lefties. And then he figured it out. It says a lot too, when you understand this is going to crack the argument of platoon guys or people saying, Joe, just give them reps because it's going to. If you let somebody know their role, and that's what you're going to be doing, and this is what we've wanted for this team, just give these guys some roles. If you're not playing every day, if they shouldn't be forced out there every day, then just find a specialized role for them. With Kike, it's elevated his play. Against lefties, now we feel confident. I feel confident. With Andy Pages out here, he's going to be playing not every day, but when there's a lefty on there, late swap, big pinch hit spot, now you see it. And I think it's elevated his game. He's got a central focus here. I don't feel bad. I don't feel worried if Andy Pages comes in a game versus either side, lefties, righties. So I love the spot where the lineup's at. I think the 26 man being set. I think the position player stuff being set. World's confident, man. This is set it, forget it. Let's see who's the October hero here. We'll save some stuff for our preview. We're going to be doing in a little bit, chat. Final thoughts from Daniel. We'll turn it over to Matt and we'll let him get to his stuff. He's got a busy day coming.
My final thoughts is that the nerves are officially starting to hit. Like, we started the show with big smiles on our faces, and I'm still smiling, but it's more now to hide the nerves. I know we still got a while till game time, but just talking through all this, like, got, Dodgers on my mind, and, I'm starting to sweat over here, getting those playoff nerves. So excited, but also nervous for sure.
Matt, send us home, buddy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm ready. I think I felt like it's been a long week, kind of sort of slow in some sense, and then all of a sudden picked up the last day or two with just now game one finally being here. So I am looking forward to a little bit of baseball. I know it's the Guardians and Tigers are playing right now, but some baseball over on the West Coast for us. We get to actually talk about a real game instead of different scenarios and this and that. So it should be plenty exciting. Obviously, Yamamoto making his postseason debut, Ohtani making his postseason debut. It'll be a lot for you, Scott, to talk about before the game, and then certainly on our live post-game show as well tonight.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I won't be on the post game tonight. We're going to be doing everybody in chat. 2000. We appreciate you being in here. Do us a favor before you head out. Like, subscribe, notification bell. Stay tuned in. Blake Williams and we're going to be doing a pregame show. We haven't set a timeout yet. But keep tabs for us on the social medias. We'll let you know there. It's going to be in a few hours here. But thank you. 2000 in here across all social medias. My name is Scott Geirman. I'm here with Daniel Starkand. Follow him on Twitter at @DStarkand. This is Matt Moreno. He's going to be doing some brilliant work for us, covering the game live. He's going to be at the NLDS there. He'll be getting us some great interviews, quotes. Thanks, Matt. We appreciate you, man. Thank you. Everybody, we're going to head out here. As always, my name is Scott Geirman. Thanks for tuning in to Dodger Heads. 26-man roster set. Go Blue. We'll see you soon.